Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm so pleased to see many of you here, colleagues that I've worked with over the years, industry, community partners who have been on the journey with us, and some new faces are joining us today. Thank you for taking the time to be part of this important conversation. My name's Faith Valencia Forrester, and I'll be the first of 3 hosts this morning, along with my colleagues, Dr. Nicola Fish and Professor Carolyn Ruckart. Just some quick housekeeping. We will be recording the session, so if you don't want to appear on camera, please keep your camera off, but we do hope that you'll leave the camera on so we can facilitate a collaborative and inclusive dialogue. Now, WIL Australia President, Associate Professor Michael O'Connor, unfortunately had to withdraw at the last minute due to family commitments. So I'm sure you'll join me in sending him our best wishes. But I do know that Michael, had he been here, would have been pleased to welcome you all on behalf of WIL Australia and share with you that as the peak body for work integrated learning in Australia, we're committed to advancing excellence, equity, and innovation in WIL across the country. Michael did want to share with you that as president, he's very proud to represent a community that champions collaboration between universities, industry, government, and students to ensure that WIL is not only accessible, but impactful. Our shared mission is to strengthen the design, delivery, and recognition of WIL experiences that prepare learners for the future of work and contribute meaningfully to Australia's social and economic priorities. Today, we're launching the National Priority Industry Linkage Fund Roundtable initiative, and this initiative reflects WIL Australia's core aims to foster strategic partnerships, to support sector-wide innovation and growth, and advocate for systems and approaches that enable high-quality, inclusive WIL. And I'm sure we all thank Michael for the warm welcome and wish him and his family the best at this time. So I'm just going to share my screen. We've got it's not letting me share. Okay, while I work that out, I'll keep going. Before we dive in, I would like to acknowledge something that many of you have been working incredibly hard on over the past 3-4 years, actually. Implementing new programs, building partnerships, supporting students, collecting data, writing reports. And today isn't about adding to your workload or putting more on your plates. It's all about taking a collective breath and asking, what did we achieve? What did we learn? And what does it tell us about WIL and why it matters? So over the past 3 years, the National Priority Industry Linkage Fund, affectionately known as NPILF, has enabled universities across Australia to innovate, experiment, and invest in WIL in ways that simply weren't possible before. We've seen remarkable initiatives emerge, from building regional workforce capacity to financial support programs that remove barriers for equity students, to First Nations pathways that created opportunities where none existed before. And as we near the end of this NPILF pilot period, WIL Australia recognised that we have both a responsibility and an opportunity to document what was achieved, what was learnt, and what didn't work as expected. And it's also an opportunity to demonstrate with evidence the value of government investment in work integrated learning. So here's what today's all about, where this roundtable brings together the people who've been doing this work, the university practitioners, industry and community partners, students, and our colleagues from the Department of Education. Today, we're creating something unique, which is a synthesis of collective intelligence about what NPILF investment enabled. Hopefully next year, we'll have another roundtable to further explore these insights. The case studies you'll hear shortly showcase different dimensions of impact: student employability outcomes, industry partners that address workforce needs, equity, innovations, regional capacity building, and honest lessons about what worked and what didn't. And following the presentations, you'll have the opportunity to contribute your own insights and experience through collaborative discussions. And from all of this, WIL Australia will produce the National NPILF Insights and Impact Report. The report will be shared with the Department of Education and all of our NPILF institutions, along with Universities Australia and the broader sector. While NPILF is a specific program is ending, the need for quality WIL continues, and this report will document that evidence of what's possible when there's dedicated government support for work-integrated learning, making the case for why WIL deserves ongoing recognition as a national priority. So that's our purpose for today, to learn from each other, to document what we've achieved, and to build the evidence base for why this work matters. Before we get into the practicalities of today, I'm very pleased to be able to welcome Uncle Lloyd Dolan, who is going to provide an acknowledgement of country, grounding us in place and responsibility. Uncle Lloyd has done lots of work with WIL practitioners around the country, particularly supporting nursing and education practitioners develop and enhance inclusive work-integrated learning programs. Over to you, Uncle Lloyd.
Thanks, Faith. So, Nadu, Kawambana Radri Yabongiara. Yunari Lloyd Dolan, Kadang, Narangdaray, Malian Kuga. Kawambana do Ninyogi Ninangira. Nadu, Kobara, Injamanijo, Moyelum, Maritable, Yalabo, Girabo. Niyani Kobara Dolong. Numbai, Mangalangu, Injamarawanangana. Niyani, Winabunura, Panonaranara, Wanabanayani, Kiyara Bain. Nado Gobara Mangawal, Ninanangira. Now, I'll tell you in English what I said. So I just introduced myself and said I was going to do it in Radri language for you. So I am Radri based at Wagga Wagga, it's part of Charles Sturt University. So I just said, I want to welcome everybody to our gathering and our conversations today. I want to pay my respects to elders, past and present, but also acknowledge future elders as well, as we recognise the understanding and knowledge from First Nations peoples and the wisdom of respectfully knowing how to live well in a world worth living in. We consider the world we will leave for the future generations. And I also wanted to acknowledge all the different nations that may be represented here today as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Uncle Lloyd. I'm going to try and share my screen again. Let me see. I have a new computer. Let me try one. Oh, let's see if that works. Is that sharing a PowerPoint slide?
It just needs to be in presentation mode, Faith.
Okay, let's see how that works.
Sharing perfectly.
Look at that. Okay. I actually have a new computer, and of course I knew something would go wrong. Okay. Now, I'm just going to flip through. We've reflected on why we're here today, what has changed through NPILF, share our key learnings, identify factors that enable success and barriers, and shape future priorities to sustain employability and WIL through the managed growth funding system. So here's a quick overview of how we'll run through today. We've had our welcome to country and setting the scene. Next, we have our lightning talks, which is a series of amazing practitioners who have been doing work specifically through national priority industry linkage funds. And we're going to share some of those successes and case studies with you in brief 8-minute talks. And after those 8 minutes talks, we'll have a quick 4-minute Q&A. So I encourage you to get your questions ready. This is going to be fast. Then we'll have a quick break, and then we'll come back for a national dialogue around insights and priorities before closing and our next steps. So now it's time for our lightning talks. I'm very pleased to be able to present to you our very first presenter, Professor Ruth Bridgestock from Swinburne University, followed by Paulina McLeish from University of Adelaide, Rachel Hennessy from University of Southern Queensland, and Professor Alison Beavis from University of New South Wales. First of all, I'd like to introduce you to Professor Ruth Bridgestock from Swinburne University. Over to you, Ruth, and please let me know when you want me to click to the next slide.
Will do, Faith. Thank you so much. And it's my absolute pleasure and privilege to be sharing my experience of NPILF, and every learner gets a work experience at Swinburne's in Swinburne's WIL transformation. This is condensing 5 years of my professional life, much of it supported by NPILF, into 8 minutes. Right, next slide. Thank you. Okay, this is drawn directly from our NPILF report, and it talks about Swinburne's aspiration that all undergraduate courses delivered at Swinburne will have a WIL experience at every stage in the course. So this is from our Horizon 2025 institutional strategy, which was from 2020 to 2025, which aimed to provide all undergraduate students with WIL experiences at all stages of the course, which included industry placements, internships, and industry-linked projects. Next slide, please. Not to put too fine a point on it, this is what we achieved. It took years, and yes, we were successful in achieving our Moonshot 1 of Horizon 2025, fully scaffolded progression of WIL in all undergraduate courses for an average of 11 units for each completing undergraduate student during their course, or 890 units transformed in all. There's a wide range of support and other work streams that we worked on to support this. So educator professional learning, students as partners, WIL innovation projects, the new WIL procedure, quality, legal and risk management approaches, an advanced industry engagement strategy, an evaluation framework, and support for access for our equity learners. Next slide, please. The evidence of impact is coming in now, and oh, Faith. Okay, this is interesting. Can you still hear me, everybody? Okay,
We can still hear you, Ruth.
Okay, so the evidence of impact is coming in now and is quite consistent, that students who engage in WIL in terms of their GOS and their GOS-L outcomes are more successful because of their WIL experiences. And we've actually moved comparatively up, not that we compare our results at all, from 3rd to 1st in Victoria for our graduate outcomes survey. And also in terms of our GOS-L, we ranked 1st for full-time employment 3 years out in Victoria. We've also got evidence of career readiness survey shifts. So students who complete WIL have significant increases in career readiness. Next slide, please. In terms of equity and access, we had to put a lot in place. So, for instance, an Accessibility Careers Hub program to enhance access for students living with a disability or ongoing health condition. We have an equity ally approach to embedding into our industry partnership strategy. And we also instituted bespoke programs and judicious engagement of third-party providers. Equity is still an issue, and it's something that we're going to need to keep on top of and keep looking to support our students. Industry perspectives, the advanced industry engagement strategy shows that there are direct positive outcomes in terms of employment outcomes for professional placement and professional internship students, and 93% of our placement and internship employers would be prepared to hire their students. Yay, next one, please. Success factors, okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, whole of institution strategy engagement. So it really helps if you've got a strategic top-down enablement and resourcing approach, which is also enabled by policy, and on-the-ground translation to practice using local expertise with every area of the institution involved. And that's why we needed the Horizon 2025 and the NPILF. We needed to support structural changes. So we actually needed to move the people who were going to be working on WIL transformation into the same organisational area, and then create a hubs and spokes model into the schools and the delivery areas to enable and capability build. We needed to really drive deep curriculum changes in order to make this happen. And we needed to make sure that what we're doing was aligning with institutional identity. I'm feeding back a little. Swinburne has been offering WIL for more than 60 years. It's hugely congruent with who we are. This project doubled down on those existing strengths. It affirmed who we are at Swinburne and what we believe in. Next slide, please. Sustainability, we have managed to sustain 100% WIL since 2023, and we're now demonstrating that consistent impact on career readiness and graduate outcomes. It'll continue to be central to our next strategic plan, which we're now working on. Next slide, please. Value of government investment, huge. What was impossible before NPILF funding? Well, before NPILF, Swinburne wasn't in a position to pursue WIL transformation that would make a difference to all of our students. The return on investment, I think we'd agree, would be pretty significant. We chose to invest in a significant whole of institution program of work to enhance the work and career readiness of all of our students, and we've been successful in doing so. It's not perfect, but we've really changed what we're doing. And so we're going to continue to pursue our WIL aspirations in future. We're deeply committed to student success and graduate outcomes, but without that clear imprimatur from NPILF or clear policy support, we're going to be competing with other worthwhile agendas, like they're called student success, student experience, student retention, and so on. And I note that there's not a lot of WIL in the current accord kinds of settings, apart from Commonwealth prac payment, which is making a difference to our students. We've had thousands of applications so far, so that's a really good direction to go in. Next one, please. Challenges. Even with strategic alignment and full support, institutional change is often challenging. And you know what? It's not always about people. Everybody was on board with this. But our institutional systems, our legacy processes, we've all worked in large organizations, right? Posed some big challenges. And often the computer said no. And we had to work a way to get around the computer or bring the computer on board or get a different computer. So by focusing on our shared purpose and the meaning behind it, we got through or around those roadblocks. So if we pull everybody together and affirm where we're going and what we believe in, we can stay on track, and we did here. Genuine partnerships with students, alumni, industry partners, and among different university organisational areas is crucial to success in this kind of level of transformation. Next slide, please. The importance of WIL. For students, participation in WIL enhances graduate outcomes and student career readiness, but there's more fundamental things than that. So more fundamentally, WIL deepens and broadens student learning, it builds adaptability, it helps students make professional connections that are going to change their lives, throughout their lives. For industry, yes, it's about early talent pipelines, but more fundamentally, it means that an industry partner can contribute actively to what and how students learn, and it gives them a chance to give back and develop their own capabilities. And for universities, and this is crucial, this will be my number one in this lightning talk, WIL is an opportunity to develop mutually beneficial relationships that can inform and enrich our learning and teaching and other areas of our practice and enriches our communities. And that's the end for me. Thank you.
Ruth, thank you. That was amazing. Before we go to see if there's any questions in the chat, you made a significant achievement having 100% scaffolded WIL across the curriculum. You know, as someone who's been trying to add WIL unsuccessfully, how did you do that? That is amazing, considering it's gold standard practice for WIL.
Yeah, I think that what's crucial to get scaled and scaffolded WIL is to have that top-down enablement, to have that resourcing, the strategic alignment that also links into policy. So if we can point at something that says the government supports this is a top priority, we need to be allocating our resources in kind as well, then we can get whole of institution movement. I think you can achieve quite a lot through bottom-up and top-down engagement if you don't have that high-level support. And you can start to demonstrate the efficacy of what you're doing with WIL, but it needs to be in that top-level strategic plan in order to really drive through those results. Yeah.
And I think that government support has really done a great deal in actually making that happen. Yeah. Because we were mandated to do WIL, weren't we?
We were.
Does anyone
have we did.
Does anybody have any questions for Ruth before we move on to our next lightning talk?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Hi, sorry. I'm dressed to go for a run at lunchtime, working from home.
Good on you, Siobhan.
Yeah, sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
But active wear, you can wear it anywhere.
Yeah.
Quick question. How did you get the buy-in from, let's say, did you embed WIL within academic courses? Because, you know,
Yes.
the curriculum is already so full, it's difficult to build that in. I'm just wondering on a practical level, how you actually, I mean, you know, if they came on board, but how did you actually do it?
So the way we view it is that work integrated learning is a set of pedagogic practices. It doesn't replace the existing curriculum. Instead, it deepens the learning of that curriculum.
Yeah.
And so you can learn the same stuff, actually more stuff, and deeper and broader with work integrated learning than you can with traditional pedagogy. And so if you design something right, like an industry-linked project, maybe mini internships or a deep in industry or community experience, that can actually enable the existing learning outcomes to be achieved, but much more effectively. And through our experiences, we were able to start to demonstrate that.
Thanks, Ruth. If you've got your mic unmuted, could you please mute the mic because it's making it difficult for some of us to hear? Thank you so much. Ruth, I'm going to come back to that question, but we do have to move on. Thank you so much for that presentation. My head's spinning, and I'm sure we have more questions.
No worries. Everybody, please reach out if you want to have a conversation with me. I'm very happy to share our learning.
Carolyn, do you have your hand up?
No, Ruth. I was just managing the mic.
Oh, perfect.
That's it.
Okay. All right. So before we move on to our next presenter, I just want to warmly acknowledge and welcome the Department of Education representatives who are joining us here today. We're genuinely grateful for your presence and your time in observing on what we've learned through NPILF. So hopefully the evidence that you're hearing today represents some of that significant investment, your investment, and we want you to see what that investment achieved. So thanks so much for taking the time out today. I'm very pleased I'm going to share my screen again, and forgive my clumsy technical efforts here. I have a new computer. So our next presenter is Ms. Paulina McLeish, who is a Senior Research Internships Coordinator, Employability Careers and Student Academic Skills at the University of Adelaide. Over to you, Paulina.
Thank you so much, Faith. Hi, everyone. So it's great to be here. Faith, you've introduced me, so I won't do that again, but I guess today I'm going to share some insights into our collective team, how we've worked together to really streamline the internship experience for our students, academics, and industry partners. So since our team formed in 2022, we have collectively enhanced productivity, improved efficiencies, and supported scalability to allow growth. And our NPILF numbers, I believe, really reflect this. So just for some context, I thought it would be important to share my team structure, as I know we all have unique team structures and reporting lines within universities and higher education. However, our internships team here at the University of Adelaide is a centralised team. So here I've included a partial org chart where we have my manager of internships followed by myself and my equivalent colleagues reporting up to that manager. Just for reference, we also have about 6 support staff that sit under us to assist with the day-to-day internship-related administrative duties. I've also got my colleague Catherine Began on the call today. So Catherine is the internships team leader in the Faculty of Sciences, Engineering and Technology, which we call SET. My presentation will share some key insights into both of our programs. However, if you've got questions for Catherine as well, she will be assisting with the Q&A, so ask away when I finish. Next slide, please, Faith. So when we look at NPILF numbers, you can see here our current numbers for 2025 have far exceeded the initial targets in both high degree by research and sciences, engineering and technology. So in HDR, I had a target of 65 internships in 2025, and as of today, there have been 113 internships with a further 66 initiated this year. And in SET, Catherine and the team have also exceeded their targets, which is really a testament to the team's ability to work efficiently, collaboratively with not only students, but industry partners and academics also. Next slide, please. I'm going to share our team's top 3 success factors, with the first one being the streamlining of processes. So firstly, for credit-bearing internships, the teams have reviewed course codes and course outlines to ensure consistency. There has been an introduction of student appointments. So we use the online platform Calendly that students can access from our website, and where they can book face-to-face appointments with us online, which we offer twice a week. We also have online forms available on our websites to make contacting us really simple. So for example, we have an industry proposal form. It's purely an online form that industry partners can fill out. They can attach an internship scope, requirements, all the things, all their information, which then saves time for our team, meaning we can advertise the internship, recruit the student, and complete the necessary paperwork in a more efficient manner. Our team does heavily rely on the internship system Sonia, meaning that internship agreements and any student compliance is managed through the system. We have been able to implement an advanced automated workflow where all parties, so for example, the student, industry partner, academic, university signatory, can sign the internship agreement online, with the internships team having a really clear oversight as to where the agreement's at or what the holdup may be. And this is obviously a stark contrast to a manual document process, which we know can take anywhere from, 1 to 4 weeks to execute. Next slide, please. So secondly, our team does collaborate really well. In regards to team referrals, we're always thinking outside the box when collaborating. So for example, the undergraduate internships team has inbuilt a question within their online form, asking partners whether they may be interested in a HDR internship. And if the partner indicates that they are, then I'm notified. It is a really strong process, which has resulted in a variety of leads for my HDR internships team. And on the flip side of that, I guess, if I'm speaking to a research partner and they've never hosted, I do also make them aware that we offer undergraduate internships. Our manager also does a great job at including myself and the internships team leaders to be part of a broader University of Adelaide industry engagement network. And this is really a chance for us to connect with other colleagues who are industry facing, such as, business development or external relations, and discuss where there may be opportunities or where there's crossover. Our central team is part of a broader employability, careers, and student academic skills unit. So we do liaise really heavily with careers. We often attend careers expos and open days, which helps us to connect with new students and also partner organisations. And lastly, I'll mention we do use an additional platform called Career Hub to advertise all of our internship opportunities, which the careers team also uses. And it gives us a great oversight into how an industry partner may already be involved with our university. So we can really see all the history of their involvement, any direct contacts, which internships and with what faculties they've hosted with, the events they've attended, or their recruitment needs. Next slide, please. So the last factor to share would be our team's shared responsibility and accountability for outcomes. We are regularly asked to report on our numbers and further student experience metrics. We ensure we operate with this in mind and always work towards a shared and common goal. And we also recognise and celebrate our wins. So we are quite motivated to achieve in our team, and we've been really lucky to enjoy and be thanked for that with, team lunches put on by senior management. Next slide, please. When I think of challenges, I guess I do smile because we know that it's WIL. It's not always linear, it's not always straightforward. As a WIL professional, we really are, I believe, the conduit that hold the experience together. And obviously with that comes some challenges. Resourcing was a challenge for us due to KPIs, but we have mitigated that by hiring casual staff to assist with increased workloads. Another common challenge for us all is obviously the balancing of partner expectations versus student capabilities. So a prime example of this is within our SET faculty, where internships from certain courses are compulsory, but then there's also a high international student cohort, which means that our team needs to intricately balance, the students they're putting forward to industry partners who often face their own challenges around residency requirements. So a creative way we've tried to overcome this is by organising more industry-based events where industry can actually meet all the students, domestic and international. Quality supervision for us is always a challenge, ensuring partner organisations are providing the right structured environment. To ensure that students have a successful internship. So our ABLE, SET, and myself and HDR overcome this by regular check-ins, which are automated at different points in the internship. So for example, after the first 2 weeks, there's a check-in at the midway point and towards the completion where we issue a feedback satisfaction form. Next slide, please. So what's next for our team? As most of you may have heard, we are creating a new university with the amalgamation of University of Adelaide and UniSA. So we are in a unique position. However, there is a strategic priority to increase WIL within Adelaide University. So what will that look like for us? We do know there's a centralised WIL team, much like we have now. There will be a graduate research industry team, which will include research internships, and also a total of 6 college WIL teams who will be delivering internships. It's really an exciting space for us, and I have no doubt that we'll continue to support students, industry, and academics through WIL experiential learning. And just the next slide, please, my last slide. Obviously, I want to discuss the importance of government funding. Without the support of government through NPILF, we would not achieve what we have. As you've seen today, NPILF has allowed better collaboration both internally and with industry. And if we do think of this initiative in a broader sense, government funding for internships has further widespread positive impacts. So there's increased access and equity, supports student development, strengthens workforce readiness, encourages employer participation, fosters innovation and diversity, and improves program quality and oversight. Obviously, funding comes with monitoring and standards, which we can improve the overall quality and educational value of internship experiences. So that is, I believe, the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Paulina. Those figures are actually quite amazing. You've pretty much doubled your targets, and I know HDR internships are not an easy space to
No.
work in. So well done. And something else that struck me in your presentation was the level of industry engagement. That's really a core feature, and that's something that WIL has offered or done, is increased those industry connections with universities and through the different disciplines. Is that something that you did because of NPILF or something that you were able to kind of build on because of your NPILF funding?
I think it's a combination of both. I think the way that we're structured means we're sort of sitting in the middle and we're able to have, collaboration with many teams within the university. And so I think because we've been included in different meetings, different events, we're able to build on those partner relationships, obviously with NPILF in mind. But I think the structure has really helped. We're not, I think of prior to 2022, that collaboration was still happening, but we weren't central. And so there wasn't as much communication as there is now, definitely.
Right. Does anybody have a question for Paulina before we move on to our next lightning talk?
Faith, I might jump in if it's all right with a question, not in the chat. Paulina, a question for you. You talked about the resource intensiveness of WIL around supervision and that being a key factor to building confidence for industry. What were some of the other factors that were really important when you were starting to think about how do you strengthen your relationship to industry so that they become more ongoing partners in your strategy?
Yeah, I think just giving industry a really clear, streamlined experience. So our partners are really recurring because they know what happens at each stage of the way. You know, we've got our recruitment of the students down pat, so they tell us what they want and we try and match that as best as we can, obviously whilst keeping, you know, the student in mind and making sure the student receives the appropriate career readiness support. We then, you know, organize the interviews. So there is a lot that happens in our team in the background where we get the student sort of ready to go to the partner. I mentioned we do those midway check-ins. We do, you know, regular communication. We try and stay up to date with what's happening with the student. So we've got, you know, those processes down quite well. And at the end, I suppose, most of the time everyone has a great experience and they just host with us continuously. So yeah, I think it's just having like a streamlined process.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. I'm conscious of the time. Paulina, I really appreciate that. I'm going to share my screen again and introduce our next presenter. Rachel Hennessy is Manager and National Priority and Industry Linkages from the University of Southern Queensland. And they're talking about a virtual work integrated learning model for a regional university. Over to you, Rachel.
Excellent. Thank you for the introduction, Faith, and thank you everyone for being here for this important discussion today. So this morning I'll be taking you through our main NPILF project for the Work Integrated Learning metric, which was metric 1. However, I would like to also highlight at this point that we did actually have 3 projects that we were working out through under the NPILF funding. However, today I'll only be discussing the WIL metric. Next slide, please, Faith. So first, I did just want to begin with an acknowledgement of country. UniSQ acknowledges the First Nations of Southern Queensland and their ongoing connection to country, lands and waterways, and we repay our deep respect to elders past and present. Thank you, Faith. So as I briefly mentioned, today I'm focusing on what we originally called our Applied Sciences WIL Clinic, which had a focus on STEM. Our target was to increase the quantity of industry projects accessible to applied sciences students by 30% of our baseline, which for us, we decided to track both students and projects. And our baseline at the end of 2022 was 72 students participating in a total of 19 projects. And our clinic very quickly transitioned from an in-person clinic model to a virtual model due to our diverse cohort of students. And over this NPILF project over the past 3 years, we've consistently exceeded baseline targets year on year, gaining traction across the university and prompting interest from a wide range of disciplines. So what this meant in 2025 is we expanded beyond final year capstone courses into first year and second year courses, really creating enabling a scaffolded, connected and supported learning experience across our entire programs. And it now also supports single assessment items linked to industry projects, offering students a hand-on learning experience without the intensive resource demands of full WIL placements, which demonstrates the model's flexibility and scalability across our courses, disciplines and programs, and the need for such a model and focus on WIL across the university. Thank you, Faith. So you might still be wondering what brought about our virtual work integrating learning model, and for us it's quite simple. Over 70% of our students study online. So before virtual WIL and this NPILF funding, these students in the communities they live in had no access to meaningful WIL opportunities. As this map illustrates, our student cohort is spread across the country, often in rural and remote areas where traditional placements are simply not possible or very difficult for students, and a lot of the time turn students off actually undertaking higher education in the first place. But that's where our virtual WIL model truly shines, as it bridges that gap and enables students and local community partners to collaborate in authentic, impactful work experiences regardless of geography. And our research and on-the-ground experience show that rural and regional Queensland businesses are the main businesses that face significant challenges in attracting and retaining skilled workers. And this affects not only their operations, but their local economies as well. But the virtual WIL model has changed this narrative. And through this NPILF funding and the development of this model, we've been able to connect industry with the knowledge, energy, and innovation of our UniSQ students right where they live and created a mutually beneficial partnership. Thank you, Faith. In this slide, it just details our model and how it has evolved and how it has scaled, showing that it's more than just a virtual WIL model, and supporting the various students and industry needs based on each individual project, which we've really put a focus on to make sure that we are really creating a tailored experience for every single discipline area, every course, and every industry partner that joins us. And I'll detail these a little bit later on as well. Thank you, Faith. So when the virtual WIL model first launched in 2023, we were delivering 40 projects across 4 individual courses. And since then, we've expanded into over 121 projects and 16 individual courses within multiple disciplines and levels of study, and again, broader than just STEM. And in the beginning, we only had the support and engagement of around 17 industry partners. But fast forward to today, that has grown exponentially to 430 active industry connections. But these are not just names on a list. They are industry that are engaged and have actually supported and participated in the design and success of our model. Thank you, Faith. So as mentioned a little bit before, our virtual WIL model has enabled us to engage meaningfully with a diverse range of industry partners, many of whom have not had the resources or capacity to work with universities through traditional means or undertake such projects without heavy investment and resources that they simply don't have within the regions. And so some of these examples for the Green Intelligence, together we virtually co-designed a project addressing regional sustainability challenges, with students then having the opportunity to visit the organisation in Nepal through a new Colombo plan. And with Momentum Mental Health, a regional not-for-profit, we've partnered with them in 6 different disciplines, engaging with over 120 students with this one industry partner. So a very long-term relationship that we've created with this amazing industry partner, which students have supported in the strategic planning and identified new avenues for their community outreach and their funding for their continuation. And this has had a direct impact on mental health within the Darling Downs region. And the final one with Statham Healthcare, students engaged fully online to develop a data-driven solution for sustainable regional healthcare as well, delivering practical benefits to our local communities, which again just highlights the flexibility of the virtual WIL model and its ability to deliver meaningful outcomes regardless of location, and its potential to build enduring cross-sector relationships as well. Thank you, Faith. And so this slide just highlights our industry partners that we've really focused on, and to ensure we were meeting the needs of our local communities, we were really focusing on those regional, rural and remote SMEs and not-for-profit organisations, social enterprises, and they have been our focus throughout as well. And importantly, it has also opened up new pathways for industry partners to collaborate with UniSQ in ways that they hadn't previously, and really created those emerging pipelines for graduates that were previously non-existent as well. Thank you, Faith. And so in this slide, it just showcases a very small portion of our feedback from our students, staff and industry partners. And to highlight some of the key ones, 99% of our students reported improved learning. 76% of students stated that they had dramatically enhanced their teamwork and communication skills, and 2/3 of students stated that their increased interest in working with a local community organisation as well, compared to their initial thoughts of I can only work for Microsoft or Google, for example. So really considering those regions now and staying where they live, which is a really amazing outcome. And in 2024 alone, 10 students secured employment or contracts as a direct result of their virtual work integrated learning experience. And in 2025, some amazing results for us, which we're very excited about. 100% of our industry partner respondents agreed that they would recommend their virtual work integrated learning projects to other organisations in their network. 100% also agreed that their student team proposed an effective plan or proposal to address their opportunity or their problem. And 81% agreed that their students' final WIL outcomes and their projects satisfied their needs and met their requirements, which was amazing outcomes for us this year so far. T3 still pending. Thank you, Faith. And so our success factors, we've really just focused on our stakeholders. We could not have done this without the support and genuine engagement for our academic partners. And one of the questions before highlighted, how have we been able to embed this in our model as well? And it's just genuinely academics are wanting to update and develop their content, develop their courses, and they see this as a crucial opportunity for industry to be involved and students to have that engagement with industry as well. So would not be possible without our academic support and our industry collaboration and buy-in as well. And then also our genuine student engagement and their dedication to these projects has really made this possible. Thank you, Faith. And so a quick what continues after the NPILF and what doesn't. So our virtual WIL model will continue, however, at a very reduced capacity, as currently we will only have one position being able to be funded due to our current financial position, which poses a number of risks, such as our continued reliance on academic staff to absorb the workload that's needed to continue these courses and to continue the virtual work integrated learning projects, a risk on non-compliance with internal and external quality standards, and a lack of strategic coordination and oversight as well, making sure that it is a coordinated approach to WIL and a centralised approach to WIL. So what won't be able to continue, though, is our extracurricular engagement with industry partners, as a focus will be placed on, obviously, the in-curricular experiences. The level of support that we're able to provide to our students, our staff and our industry partners. Our higher level industry engagement and collaboration with our industry partners as well. And it will heavily impact our ability to scale and expand our model into additional programs and courses and really scale it across the entire university, which has always been our goal. Thank you, Faith. And so what was impossible before the NPILF funding? Well, to be honest, it is the entire virtual WIL model, the creation, the development and the embedding of the virtual WIL model across our university. The funding has provided much needed financial resources to build a dedicated team to create this innovative approach to WIL for our university that really needed a new model to support our diverse cohort of students. And I think personally, from my perspective, placing us years ahead with a transformative WIL model as well, which we may have not reached at this point in time. And I think this presentation has highlighted our return on investment with increased engagement with the regions, not previously engaged or connected with us, and opportunities for students to undertake high quality work integrated learning, addressing the systemic barriers to work readiness faced by regional and remote students, which also addresses the pressing need for the higher education sector and industry to systemically tackle the development of workforce skills urgently required by the Australian economy. And our challenges. So throughout the NPILF project, as this was a pilot with an expiration date, we faced the challenges of not obtaining the full university buy-in because it's only so much you can do with limited resources again, and with a huge number of programs that you have to tackle, especially when a lot of those programs and courses already have WIL accreditation requirements. And our three main key takeaways as well. So this was just a pilot over 3 years, and look what has been possible so far. So I think with continued investment and continued support, the possibilities are absolutely endless. With the growth and scalability, dramatically halted without this, without the funding and support. Thank you, Faith. And this slide really just showcases our recognition and success so far. Which is really just a testament to the power of the virtual work integrated learning and the co-design models that we've placed, and some of the recognition we've faced. Sorry, Faith, on that next slide there.
Sorry.
Thank you. No, that's all right. But yes, it's been absolutely amazing. And thank you very much for listening, and happy to take any questions and connect afterwards as well.
Again, some amazing statistics and numbers that you've been able to achieve there. What struck me was the industry partner saying because of this experience with the students, they were 3 years ahead of their current project. And I guess that really talks to the tangible input and impact that student work integrated learning does have on and with industry. So that's amazing. I'll just stop sharing. Does anybody have any questions for Rachel? I know there's so much to capture there, but amazing project.
Thank you.
We've got some comments saying fabulous outcomes for a significantly disadvantaged group of Australians, and amazing outcomes for industry too. And Sarah Jane's right. She's talking about the regional and remote workforce that has been struggling, and you've really demonstrated an impact there with what you've been able to do with your virtual work integrated learning. How hard was it to convince industry partners to engage in a virtual work integrated learning model?
Depends on the region, to be honest, but which was completely expected because, you know, going further out to Gundawindi and past there as well, like there are still limits to good quality connections, which was probably the main hesitation. But otherwise, they were so thankful and ready to jump on board because it's an opportunity. A lot of these businesses are 2 or 3 people and they have these amazing opportunities for their business that they can undertake. Just they don't have the resources. So that was the key part for us. And I think the most exciting part that we can connect with these amazing industry partners and go, here is help, like let's help you build your business and your region. So yeah, not very hard, to be honest, which has been, you know, I guess again that benefit and that success factor with our industry partners.
No, wonderful work, Rachel. Thank you so much. Time to go on to our final lightning talk. I know we're ripping through them, but some great impact here. Now I'm very pleased to introduce Professor Alison Beavis, who is the Director of Education, Innovation and Partnerships at the University of Sydney. Over to you, Alison.
Thank you so much, Faith. It's wonderful to join you here today and to share some of the outcomes from this wonderful initiative. But I'll just reflect on this was during my time as the Deputy Dean Education in the Faculty of Science at UNSW Sydney. I have moved to a new role, but the amazing team who I'll formally acknowledge and thank a little later have really continued to take the WIL strategy from strength to strength. I'll pop to the next slide. So I just wanted to start with our, and I guess, organisational or philosophy, and certainly the faculty philosophy, which really recognises just how deeply impactful WIL is and the impact that can have on the career readiness for our future graduates. Just jumping to the next slide, though, if I reflect on the reality and lived experience for students when I joined, so I joined right at the end of 2019. The reality did not match that philosophy and desire. We had just over 1/4% completing a WIL experience, and the idea that only 14 students had access to such an experience, you know, was a clear opportunity. And students generously fed back to us through surveys like NSES that they wanted, they needed, and they really did expect the faculty and the university to support their career development. So there was an overwhelming volume, you know, just in the sheer number of references. I think the desire for career development support was, I think, the 3rd or 4th ranked in terms of total volume of commentary on what needs improvement behind. Obviously, things like assessment and feedback is always a highly referenced area for improvement. So if I move on to the next slide, what started in 2020 and 2021 in those first couple of years in my tenure as Deputy Dean Education was thinking, what does a WIL strategy for the Faculty of Science look like? And some of the features, I'll talk through our approach. So this was very much an effort that was about co-design with an incredible team in science and within the central division. So there is a group centrally here at UNSW called WIL Central, a very imaginative name. But here are some of the, and I'll say, features that we really wanted to embed in the WIL strategy. And one of those things was a design framework, so very scholarly in approach, referencing, and it's humbling to be on a call with people like Ruth and others who really did inspire a lot of the features of that design framework. So Faculty of Science here is 8 incredibly diverse schools, everything from aviation to psychology and perhaps some of the more expected disciplines in a Faculty of Science. So the effort was to converge at the principal level, but still allow that disciplinary, you know, nuance and personality to come through. At the time, and it was very much a constrained funding environment, we really needed a distributed leadership model. So it was critical to find ways to engage the schools and to really empower and give them the agency to both create something that had a disciplinary edge to it, but converge on those principles that that gave us some economies of scale and unified the student experience. We also created a very flexible suite of course offerings. So courses at UNSW are subjects or units. So everything from single term, multi-term, the international opportunities, virtual opportunities. So there was a great deal of flexibility built in as one of our strategies to increase access. And I'll speak to that a little later. We also focused on that journey mapping, the human-centered approach to understand what some of those opportunities for streamlining and I'll say optimizing the experience, but also minimizing workload pressures, which were very, very real and continue to be. And within the course, so obviously the students are typically out on a placement of some sort, but that very purposeful PD along the course journey. So making sure that there is that formal learning, a set of modules and a diverse range of modules were created that allowed a student to really personalize the things that in the moment they needed to support. So whether it was about leading organizations or leading within an organization, leading self, leading impact for science, they could select the things that made sense for them in the moment. So very, very personalizable. We'll move to the next slide. So what was the immediate impact? And I've presented some of the enrollment data that you can see there. So quite modest numbers before the NPILF funding came in. So I think it's very obvious the immediate impact that it had. It allowed us to radically scale and really accelerate the provision of opportunities for students. So over 1,000 in the years that have followed with the funding, and under 100 cumulatively for acknowledging it's a different number of years there. And you can see from that compounded annual growth rate, it's been sustained across the period as well, which is what we're very, very excited about. Move to the next slide. Some quotes there from students, and these will be available in the presentation pack when it is distributed. But the genuine sort of sentiment, always very positive. Students recognizing both in the moment the experience that they're having, but also kind of reflecting later on that it was a way to connect the classroom to professional practice, which is just wonderful. And if I move to, I think, one of the real headlines, and how often do you get flown, not quite halfway around the world, but internationally for your WIL experience? So this was a partnership with Cathay Pacific, where four of our students, three it was, were welcomed to the Cathay Pacific Hong Kong headquarters to engage in a breadth of different business groups and business units across the organisation. And that also opened up conversations with the Hong Kong Trade and Economic Commission, and can see a little photo opportunity there. So really transformative, high profile partners. And if I segue into partners, none of this is possible without them. So if we move to that next slide, it's been critical to really drive both growth in the numbers, recognizing that the time to nurture a partner lead takes significant amount of time. So on the flip side of that, we really were investing in nurturing and sustaining those. So that repeat, if you like, sort of experience was critical. So we were looking to drive sustained engagement over multiple terms. And what we started to see was, as the partner were building confidence in the experience, they would start to say, we won't just take 1 or 2, we'll take 3 and 4. Big partners, high profile partners were also a critical part of success. And diversity. I think Rachel touched on that, diversity of different partners. So be them startups, not-for-profits, government, corporate. We really wanted to emphasize the breadth of career pathways that are available to students and have that reflected in our partnership portfolio. I'll move over, so some of the partners, and this is just a snapshot, but you can see, you know, a range of government, corporate, and everything in between. So coming to, I think the next slide is some of the learnings. So connecting WIL to our broader program renewal efforts has been really critical. We were always conscious that there was a lot happening in the program renewal space for the faculty, even to the point where our Bachelor of Science, our real flagship program, we have a section of the program which is tagged employability experiences. WIL is one of those experiences, but it could be other things. And that was really part of the narrative that it was, you know, by having a section of the program called employability experience, it was a real signal that we value those experiences, and it's our, I guess, our commitment to driving those really positive graduate outcomes. Starting with an evaluation mindset, and we're really just starting to kick. And I'm saying the royal we, the wonderful team who continue this work, starting to evaluate some of those more, I'll call them lagging indicators of success. Because what that evaluation mindset then allows for is evidence-based advocacy. And I think that has been a really critical element to be able to envisage this becoming sustained across the faculty post NPILF. So persistent, consistent, evidence-based advocacy, and being very intentional in our promotion of success and promoting these experiences. So we celebrate and promote, I think, equally, whether it is social media channels to really meet the students where they are, a dedicated SharePoint site that students are constantly reminded of its existence. It's dotted throughout, you know, the first year core courses in first year, our disciplinary courses, there are reminders about that. So students are constantly brought back to that promotional space, but we also celebrate. And one of the real headline activities, and I'll move to the next slide, it should be my final one, is this RIL and WIL showcase. It is one of the highlights of the year. I'm there in the back smiling away because it was just the most joyful evening to hear directly from the students. It's really in a kind of almost 3-minute thesis style, but students just talking about in the moment what it meant, and some of those had completed their experience a year prior, and that continued impact that the experience was having. So there's some of the learnings. There are things that we would love to do more of, and it's really seeing a step change in the access. We see, I think it's about a 2% differential in, say, low SES participation rates at the whole of faculty, and it's 2% higher for the students completing WIL. So that is, you know, I guess a positive indicator. But where I think other equity groups, I don't believe we had a single student who was registered with from a disability perspective. We certainly have seen an underrepresentation of neurodiverse students. So there are some ongoing efforts to address that. I'll call it lack of participation, which I know is a noted challenge for us all as a practitioner community. I'm going to stop. I think I've gone way over time, but I'm very grateful and humbled to join you today, and happy to answer any questions.
I owe everybody beers. Thank you so much, Alison. Also some great outcomes. Those increase in enrollments are amazing. Does anybody have any questions for Alison before I pose a question to the lightning talks? Does anyone want to come on? Okay.
I feel compelled. I didn't actually get to the final slide, which was formally acknowledging the incredible team who are now continuing to drive this work. part of the strategy of building out WIL was creating a partnerships team, so a focus on engagement with partners and the student experience of WIL, and really have to acknowledge it is their incredible hard work that's made all of this possible. So I really do want to acknowledge and formally thank them.
Oh, there you go. I just put the slide back up
Thank
for
you.
you, Alison. You're welcome. You're welcome. Before we move into the next section, NPILF has allowed WIL to move from the margins to the mainstream. That mandate really drove a lot of the innovation and growth that we've seen today. So I'm just going to quickly put to our lightning talk speakers, without that mandate to support work integrated learning, Ruth, Rachel, Alison, what do you think is going to happen if now that mandate's no longer there? Ruth, you've come off
Okay.
camera. Oh,
I'll jump in. So at Swinburne, work integrated learning it's a fundamental part of our identity, and we'll keep on pursuing it. But as I said in my 8 minutes of fame, without that policy enablement, that explicit mandate, it's going to end up competing with a bunch of other, really important priorities. And so I've had to start talking about how WIL and career readiness are really important to sense of belonging, which they are, and in turn, student engagement and student success. So I'm needing to change my narratives, and I'm needing to link with other important agendas in order to get the kinds of support that previously would have been very straightforward for me. Yeah.
And so you're at quite a senior level, Ruth. So I'm not going to say easier for you, but in some instance, you are able to make directives. But for some of the people who've been brought on, particularly with NPIL funding, those roles are no longer there. Those teams are being disestablished. So Paulina, Rachel, Alison, I invite your feedback here.
Yeah, so the likelihood is that there'll be a reduction in the number of roles that are supporting work integrated learning in science. I'm conscious that I have moved to a new role in the portfolio of the PBCE, but what the 4 years gave an opportunity to was to build that evidence base, to support the advocacy, to influence the provision of funding for some of the roles. So I think that it catalyzed for science absolutely the ability to provide opportunities. It's now built this exceptionally strong evidence base of the value to students and the wonderful partner engagement that can really be used to help leverage support to operationalize some of these roles. So that's been a real privilege to have access to that funding. But yeah, the likelihood is that there won't be the volume of staff, and that will absolutely, all of the optimization in the world cannot, there is a need for those roles to create a really great student and partner experience.
Paulina, Rachel, any final comments before I move on to the next session?
Yeah, happy to jump in. As you mentioned, Faith, for us at our university, all but one position will be disestablished, unfortunately, which does increase, I guess, the risk of where that workload will actually sit. But for us, the virtual WIL model was in addition to our current WIL model, but our WIL model focuses on the accreditation requirements of those programs, for example. So what the virtual WIL actually offered was an experience and opportunity for all students across all programs to access a virtual work integrated learning program. So without the funding and support, a lot of those unfortunately will risk continuation of offering the virtual work integrated learning opportunities as a whole, as the resourcing won't be able to I guess continue to scale that, and will only be able to offer so many across those courses.
Paulina, a last comment from you. Oh, I've put her on the spot. Okay. Thank you so much. Please join me in thanking our fabulous lightning talks, Professor Ruth Bridstock, Rachel Hennessy, also Paulina McLeish, and finally, Professor Alison Beavis. I really appreciate your time, some fantastic outcomes. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm now going to hand you over to my colleague, Dr. Nicola Fish, who will guide you through the next collaborative strategy discussion where your insights and experience will be essential. So she's also going to introduce you to the Miro board that we'll be using to capture everyone's contributions throughout the day. I'm going to put it's not the Miro board, it's a Padlet. It's the Padlet. I've put the link in the chat and then I'll start sharing my screen. Over to you, Nicola.
Thank you, Faith, and thank you everyone for such great presentations. I think we were going to have a short break and I'll let everyone grab a short break. We might shorten it even more to maybe 5 minutes, if that's all right for everybody. So, well, maybe 7 minutes by my clock. If we come back at 11:50, I think 7 minutes, you can pop a kettle on and grab a coffee. So I'll stay here and keep an eye on everything and see everybody back here at 11:50 to start the next part of the session. Andrew. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Nicola. How you doing?
Really well. It was lovely to see you.
And you too. Hey, I was just wondering, is this session being recorded by chance?
Yes, it
It
is.
is.
And we'll put up
Fantastic.
some of the resources onto the WIL Australia website at the close of the session as well.
Marvelous, because I just realized I've fallen victim to the time zone difference. I thought this was 10:30 Brisbane time, and it never dawned on me that it would be 10:30 Melbourne time, which means I've missed a whole hour.
Oh, that's all right. You will definitely be able to watch the recording of the presentations, which I would strongly suggest. There was some really great examples of the impact from the NPILF funding through those cases.
Okay. Oh, that's really great. I'll look forward to doing that.
So
And
you're
I'll
hanging
keep
around and you'll
posted.
contribute to the next stage. So that's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look forward to
Wonderful.
being part of it.
Lovely. Nice to see you.
And
You too.
it'll be lovely to have your perspectives too around the industry project WIL and the innovations around mentoring that you've been leading at Griffith. So, and I know you started that work beautifully at Swinburne. So there you go.
That's it. Thanks, Caroline. I look forward to it.
Hey, Andrew. I'm in the same boat as you. I came on an hour late too, so I'll be watching the recording.
There you go. All right.
You can still make a good contribution, Simon. Jump in the Padlet and have a play with us in a minute. It'd be lovely. Yeah.
Cheers.
Contribute to that dialogue.
Cheers.
I'm just trying to change my presentation screen. Well, it's on, it keeps coming up on that screen. I'll just leave it there.
I see what you mean.
Just keeps making it.
I think you've done a fabulous job. Thanks, Faith.
Thank you. I'm all over the place. I haven't been able to see. Have I missed any questions in the chat, Caroline? I wasn't.
No, I was
Caroline's
monitoring.
been in there.
Yeah, I was monitoring. There were some feedback comments around it, but no questions.
We should capture all of these, the feedback comments.
Yep.
So I'm not sure if, I think Vanessa can capture all of them.
Yep.
And
we've
the chat.
Oh yeah, so you can capture the chat, Vanessa. That's awesome.
I'll just copy and paste it. I couldn't manage to get it to go to the cloud, but I'll copy and paste before we finish the session.
Well,
thanks, Vanessa.
All right, so if I go present, there we go. And then I'll just. Oh, I'm going to mute. So I'll share my screen so that slides up, and then you just tell me when you want me to change the slides, okay?
Okay.
And I put the Padlet in the chat as well.
Thanks, Faith. We have the QR code up and I've checked that and that works as well.
Oh, so I can't see the chat.
That's all right. Caroline's got it. I've got it
I've
open
got
as
it.
well.
Yep, Faith, I'm managing chat.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, I think we'll jump straight back into it now. Hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to get a tea or a coffee and have a short break. So the next part of the session is really about sharing insights and looking at not just what we've done and how we've achieved impact through NPILF funding, which is clearly demonstrated in the 4 cases we've just listened to, quite amazing, but also to think about what was missing, where the gaps were, what were the challenges, and how we might be moving forward. So we're going to be using a Padlet to capture some insights. The Padlet link is in the chat, and you can also access it using the QR code in front. It is very much a conversation, and we've got such a wonderful representation with this audience today to get some really diverse perspectives and insights. So using the Padlet, we have a number of facilitators that will be supporting us in capturing the conversation and feeding back. So if we could, oh, thanks, Faith, you've already moved to the next slide, please, Faith. Great. So we have 4 areas that we'll be hoping to get some insights from you all. And as I said, it's really about reflecting, engaging in some conversation and capturing some key insights to help inform what we do next. So the first area is impact and evidence. It's quite a pertinent topic when you think of the cases that we've just had the opportunity to listen to and the level of impact. So for this particular area, this is what worked and what didn't. So what were the key learnings that we've taken away from our NPILF initiative? And, you know, you might provide some examples, you might contribute to somebody else's comments. There are some comments already in the Padlet, and we've had a little bit of inspiration already from our four cases. The second area is employability and equity outcomes. This is what we'd like you to start thinking about. the cases that worked, the groups that we may have missed, the impact of NPILF to employability and increasing equity outcomes. Again, we saw some of the data in these cases as well, and this is an opportunity for your insights to also inform us as we move forward. The third one is systems integration and sustainability. Again, we were fortunate to hear some of the impact of our systems and sustainability of our initiatives with NPILF and post a funding model that might not be as enriching or empowering as sort of NPILF has been. So how do we continue to embed quality WIL in our future funding systems? And even when I looked at the Padlet, Leonie made a comment about, well, quality WIL isn't just numbers either. So, the funding or the future funding models, it needs to be around quality of WIL, not just this sort of raw numbers. And again, when I look at some of the cases that we were just fortunate to listen to, the quality and rigor around what those cases were able to implement due to funding really demonstrated quality outcomes rather than just sort of bare raw numbers. So, really thinking about what do we need moving forward and how this audience can shape what that might look like. And of course, the final one is the future vision for WIL. So what if we were to be bold and I guess somewhat unfettered, what might that future look like? And what do we need to be more innovative in our approach to WIL moving forward? There is also a couple of sections on the Padlet that are around other. So what other examples or contributions do you want to provide to this conversation that may not fit within these 4 categories? And also another section around where does this engagement and advocacy sit moving forward in 2026? So some examples or areas that you think we should be considering for future advocacy in this space. So we're going to have 20 minutes. We'll invite you to jump into the Padlet using the QR code or the link that's in the chat. Each facilitator is looking at one of those areas. Whilst you're populating and sharing this conversation, they'll be looking at some of the key observations, some keynotes, and after 20 minutes, they will then each of them share back. And then what we will be doing is we'll be moving on to next steps around what this looks like and how we can collate our information and conversation and share back. So I think that's everything for this slide, Faith, and we end on this slide because we'll be moving into the Padlet. If you've got any questions, please post them in the chat as well. Caroline is monitoring that and we can support facilitating your engagement in the Padlet. If you've got any access problems, also post in the chat. And I'm going to jump into the Padlet and we can start our conversation. So we'll be going until, I think, about 12:10 to keep back into alignment, 12:10 to share your thoughts and insights, and then 10 minutes to share back, and then some closing and next steps. Did I miss anything? I can see that there are already some posts happening, which is great.
And Nick, I would just say probably add to that is the more we get into the Padlet, the more richer our post NPILF report is going to be, because we really want that report to be the voice of you. So it's a real chance for you to give us your insights and feedback across those key areas. So thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. I should also clarify that find something that resonates with you or that you have experience and knowledge of and you can make a valuable contribution. You certainly don't have to jump into every single area and answer every single question that we've posed. It really is just giving you an opportunity to explore and play around in the Padlet and find areas that you know that you can make a valuable contribution to.
And we're especially keen to get some answers around the sustainability question and the systems integration, because when we were listening to your presentations, one of the things that was really interesting is the ability to deliver outcomes. There were a lot of interdependencies. So what are those that we need to be paying attention to?
There's also a section in here under the employability and equity outcomes around the placement poverty, and a number of people mentioned that in their presentations as well. So thinking about new ways that we can address that aspect of WIL. I've just refreshed the Padlet, so it's looking good. We're getting a few comments, particularly in the impact and evidence space at this stage. Don't forget that if you scroll down for the Padlet, we've got 3 other areas that you might be able to make a contribution to as well. Systems integration and sustainability, which Caroline just mentioned, and some bold suggestions for future vision of WIL would be great. I will post the Padlet link again. I think this is it.
I can do that, Nicola, if you like.
I've done it.
Oh, good, good.
Helena, you should be able to access that again there, hopefully. Let me know if there's any problems. So, this is what we're talking about. Future vision for WIL. Somebody said whole of country approaches, for example, Thailand, Canada, that have massive government support.
Interestingly, through tax incentives often.
Which is achievable. Can certainly be replicated. I think you're in, Helena. Great. Really interesting to get some insights for those that have experienced it of what some of the policy or system barriers there were that got in the way, because that sort of information and insight really is where we can make some change through knowledge sharing.
In a lot of Canadian universities, you have 4 degrees and you apply for your cooperative education going into 2nd year, and you can actually add it into your degree. That's an intentional thing. In the UK, you can apply for a degree that is focused on WIL as a core value proposition. So again, a lot of different sector models.
Some really great insights coming up. I'm finding that I have to refresh the Padlet or it stays stagnant for me. So if anyone else is thinking that it's a bit quieter, you might need to refresh it.
Number of comments coming up around resource intensiveness. We know that that's a real pain point, that many academics are often wary of taking on work integrated learning courses because of the workload and the model being quite different than a regular course. So if you have any insights on that, let us know.
And that's a regular part of the conversation around sustainability, and WIL is recognising the difference of learning experience and associated workload that comes with that. Very relational, building relationships and maintaining them.
We're really keen to hear, wonderful to hear from Ruth and Swinburne and a university that's had WIL baked deeply into its DNA. I know that for many of us, we're at institutions where WIL is a really new thing. So what is it that you need in order to grow your WIL practice, to scale it and to make it sustainable. So again, really keen to hear the insights of universities where this is an emerging conversation.
I can see Andrew's comment in system integration and sustainability around how can we encourage stronger industry and community involvement. I think that's a critical piece moving forward, and you could see in some of those presentations the importance of engaging with community and industry. It'd be lovely to get some insights around how we can strengthen that as well.
Also really keen that we work with a lot of industries that are small and medium enterprises. If we have any folks in the room from industry, really keen to hear your thoughts, because we know it's quite a different experience if it's a Deloitte or a PwC versus company that has maybe under 50 employees.
Yeah, Simon sort of referred to that in the impact and evidence section, Caroline, around supervision quality, depending on the organisation type and structure and size. Seems to be a bit of a consensus around the importance of long-term funding to sustain initiatives as well as for future initiatives.
Yep. Also comments just around the disciplinary the accreditation bodies and the importance of partnering with them to build a new future.
I think that's a really valuable comment too, Ruth, about the sort of employer perceptions and implicit bias that can happen when we're looking at international student equity and access in WIL.
Ruth, that might be something you pop also in the policy question below as well. So what policy or systems barriers get in the way? So thinking about that through the lens of international students, obviously the working cap hours, and are there other barriers? We've already heard a number of presentations talk about that today.
Some interesting reading for our facilitators. It'd be good to hear what they have to say at the end. We've got another 4 minutes. I think we're going till 10 past. I think that's a really valuable point too, Rachel, where you've said that if WIL's not embedded in courses, having opportunities for students to engage in elective WIL as part of their course is certainly something that's going to increase access and outcomes for students. Don't forget, if you haven't scrolled down, we still have a section called Future Vision for WIL. So let's go bold and think about what that might look like. And also some other comments if you don't find that your insight quite fits in those 4 key areas. Yeah, I think that's another interesting comment, Melissa, and it lends itself to one of the cases around streamlining the industry experience. We're very much about streamlining student experiences, and we need to apply that sort of methodology to how we deal with industry to make it as streamlined as possible. It can be a significant barrier for them. Sort of also comes down to systems and resourcing.
Again, thank you everyone for the comments. The more comments we get, the more we will have those rich insights. So some fantastic comments coming through. Rowan, I think your point around curriculum rigidity is spot on, that we need to think not just about what we add in, but how we change what's already there to enable more WIL. A really good point.
We did some really good examples at Swinburne as well. So that congested curriculum, removing that barrier by saying, well, let's work with what's already there rather than having to add new parts to the curriculum.
Yep. Some interesting ideas here around how we incentivize SMEs through micro grants and how we incentivize industry engagement. So thank you, folks. Again, I think that was Ron. Got some good Griffith representation here. I'm just saying, very, very pleased to see wonderful colleagues in the room.
A really lovely comment in the sort of what else other comment section. NPILF has truly transformed WIL in Australia. Very disappointing if all this work fades with other priorities taking place. I think, you know, and we only heard from 4 cases today, so the impact is much more extensive. It would be a shame not to get some additional funding models to keep driving the impact from WIL.
Seeing a call for the Canadian model and some degree apprenticeships. That's really exciting. Imagine being able to go to university and have guaranteed work. That's not a bad idea. We know that they're all working anyway, but they could be working in a career-aligned work. That would be exciting.
That would be. Well, we've just hit 11 past, so do we want to go for a few more minutes? We're still getting some comments, so maybe go to 12:15 and then we'll get the facilitators to share back. Lovely. Yeah, I think this is a really valuable point from Elle, and I think this was made prior to to this session, but awareness, education and advocacy is improving, but this is a societal level system change, and this requires advocacy and ongoing commitment from peak education bodies, federal, state and local government agencies and industry. So many critical stakeholders that need to come together to support the overarching initiative.
And you get to your point just around that we need more cross-sector collaboration across TAFE and higher ed. I know that's something that a lot of the dual sector universities are doing in a really intentional way. Again, what are the other opportunities for non-dual sector institutions? A number of threads just around the financial footprint of WIL for students. And again, just we've had some really beautiful movement on that with the prac payments, but is that enough? Is that the right model? So again, really keen to hear your insights on that. Some comments around global WIL. As somebody who just presented last week at AIEC on what would it mean to support our students to prepare them for a transnational career. That's a really good point, because international WIL continues to be largely inaccessible for the majority of students. But it can be one of the strongest incentives that brings our international students to Australia, and exploring, for example, stackable 2+2 degrees. Again, there's a lot of opportunity there.
Also comment by Simon around the need for institutions to be flexible in the systems that we have, the courses we timetable, to allow for that sort of diversity in WIL. This is looking great. Thank you, everybody. Continue to engage. The Padlet will stay open for a few days post this session, so you'll be able to reflect and come back in as well, which I think is really important to do. But we're getting some really great feedback. Okay, Faith, we might, oh, you read my mind. Okay, so thank you so much. So we might get our facilitators to share back, and I will start from the top of the Padlet and work my way down. So each of them have about 2 minutes just to share an insight or a theme or something that just resonated with them. So I'm going to move to you, hand over to you, Oksana, to share back a little bit on the impact and evidence conversation. Thank you.
All right, I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Interestingly enough, that talking about the first theme, that all speakers today actually indicated that vocalizing and consolidating impact and collecting evidence is practically one of the most fundamental requirements in collecting evidence and presenting situations like this to whether share with the industry or share among themselves as providers or share with the government. We've got several areas here, and one of the biggest outcomes, and as a WIL academic myself, I feel that it's absolutely true. One of the biggest outcomes, or the best outcomes, would be when high percentage of industry supervisors actually indicate that they would employ our students. That's obviously one of the best outcomes. And also, it's clear that increased students' confidence, career direction, career planning, and better develop soft skills as sort of students progress through WIL is always a good indicator of WIL activities. And also meeting accreditation requirements. We know that for some disciplines it's extremely important. When it comes to bold ideas or new ideas, it has been mentioned today that virtual WIL as an idea is a great one. Global WIL, whether we can embed WIL into courses and units, that's another approach. And having a whole institution approach to grow industry engagement versus just pure research. That was another great idea. And also developing deep, genuine partnerships with industry, not only sort of transactional, not as transactional relationship. Obviously, the area where we talk about barriers and challenges is always the longest, which means we always have good intentions, but then we've got a lot of barriers. And one of the barriers, I won't be talking about all of them, but some of them, obviously curriculum restriction is a big consideration, how to embed WIL. We all know that another challenge would be supervision capacity to accommodate enough students or to have enough expertise to support students. Another comment was very good about supervision capacity specifically for small or medium enterprises or some disciplines. And one of the disciplines which seems to be underrepresented through WIL is visual arts. That's quite interesting. And also, it was indicated that WIL might be resource intensive, so university system needs to be prepared to actually incorporate WIL activities. And I guess the biggest, perhaps, and the most obvious challenge would be that itself does not say enough about quality or student experience altogether. And in terms of final aspect about data, there were two biggest areas. It's what type of data we collect still seems to be a challenge. We need to decide whether we collect data from industry supervisors, whether we collect data based on specific disciplines, and the answer obviously would be yes. The more data we collect, the better. And also how we collate that all data together when we collect it is, again, one of the priorities for conversations like this. And it actually quite interesting, one of the participants indicated that they've achieved the desired impact, but then how to present that data in a final report is not as simple as it sometimes feels. We need to find ways actually to highlight either challenges or successes which we achieved. And it was all highlighted in today's presenters' conversations.
Thank you so much, Oksana. Some really interesting insights. I actually quite intrigued about the whole of institution industry engagement approach. So I find a lot of WIL lands at course or unit level, and that can exacerbate. But that's another conversation, but just an interesting insight from my takeaway. So thank you, Oksana. So the next area was employability and equity outcomes, and I believe that was being led by Rebecca.
Thanks, Nicola. Thanks everyone else for your input as well. There was quite a bit to unpack in employability and equity outcomes, but I'll do my best to pull some key themes as quick as I can. Firstly, systemic barriers require multi-level solutions. We heard about discipline-specific constraints, quality supervision, more readily available to high-performing students rather than maintained across all levels, and international students facing employer bias, visa barriers, and in Canberra, security clearance exclusions, unpaid and rural placements, digital inequities, and inflexible structures disadvantage students from low-income, regional and diverse backgrounds Ruth highlighted institutional system challenges, and Paulina emphasised that without government funding, it's very challenging to increase access and equity. Government and senior leadership support is essential. Second, flexible will types emerged as a recurring theme across multiple questions. Rachel shared that for the University of Southern Queensland's online students, virtual will is critical, with fabulous outcomes for regional and remote students. Participants emphasised flexible scheduling, shorter blocks, hybrid and remote options so students can balance work, study and caring responsibilities. This tells us equity requires multiple pathways to accommodate diverse circumstances. Thirdly, an intersectional approach requires both strategic commitment and practical delivery. Using an intersectional lens creates more inclusive platforms, but this means concrete actions, flexible delivery, individual support like disability service connections and scaffolded learning. As Ruth and others emphasised, equity groups remain underrepresented. This requires sustained institutional change. Finally, addressing placement poverty requires reimagining WIL, financial solutions like tax incentives for paid internships, but also embedding WIL into courses with real clients recognising relevant paid employment as WIL, and accrediting body support for alternative placement types. Multiple pathways reduce financial barriers while maintaining quality. That's it from me. Nicola, back to you.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. That's a lovely summation. There was a lot going on, so you've done really well. Thank you so much for that. So we'll move on to the third area, and that was being facilitated by Sarah.
Thanks, Nicola. So for this one, the group consensus for system integration and sustainability was really that equity-focused and partnership-driven initiatives, such as virtual will models, cross-institutional collaborations, and integrated industry partnerships should continue to be embedded in those future funding models. So those were sort of the areas of focus in terms of what might be sustainable models going forward. There was also broad recognition that quality will really relies on sort of stable, long-term and equitable funding. So short-term project funding was called out for limiting outcomes. And I think some of the presentations today indicated what the limitations are when it's just short-term funding in place and what the impact and consequences are going forward. So many of the comments were about future models should include investments, not only in placements and placement initiatives, but also in relationships, staff capability and continuous improvement, so that needs to be a key focus going forward as well. Comments also highlighted the importance of governance frameworks that recognise WIL as a shared value activity between universities, industry and government. And I think that the idea of WIL as a mutual value proposition was highlighted a couple of times, and I think is definitely something to keep at the forefront of our thinking and planning, especially in terms of the future. In terms of policy and system barriers, of which there are many, shifting university funding priorities was something that was identified. Legacy systems and structural barriers for institutions, so things like timetabling, roadblocks, compliance requirements, but also acknowledging that we need to remove barriers for industry partners. So legal agreements were one of the things that was noted as a potential liability or a sticking point. From an industry perspective, it was noted that involvement can feel too hard, and that can be due to complex timetables, onboarding and supervision requirements. So it's a good perspective for us to keep in mind. Finally, in terms of strengthening industry and community involvement, there was strong support for government commitment and funding, and more systemic collaboration to address Australia's workforce skills needs. So for that to be also, I guess, a mutual value proposition. And the unique challenges faced by regional universities were highlighted, and some suggestions included recognition programs for industry supervisors, simplified engagement processes that make participation easier, clearer and more rewarding for partners.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Sarah. A lot to unpack with that section as well. I think the mutual value proposition certainly resonates with me. It's a group of stakeholders that all need to come together to make this win, and you know that mutual benefit can certainly be seen in the cases that were just presented today and moving forward. I'm mindful of time, so I'm going to move to the last one, the future vision for WIL, and I believe, Faith, you took this one on.
Yes, and I think people got so caught up they didn't get to it quickly, so I still invite people to put their comments, but we did get some great themes coming through. So the foundational understanding is that WIL is positioned as a suite of pedagogic approaches that builds future readiness and adaptability for students, educators, and institutions. Thanks for that, Ruth. But it also aligns with its being important as both higher education and workplaces face disruption from technologies like generative AI. There were institutional mandates around scaling WIL, so suggestions for extending this model to mandatory national level WIL requirements. Government funding and national frameworks there were calls for dedicated annual government funding for WIL that can't be directed to other purposes. Support again for a whole of country approach modeled on the examples of Thailand and Canada, where strong national associations successfully advocate for substantial government support. They said institutions should maintain autonomy to design and govern their own WIL approaches within that funded framework. There was calls for alternative models and innovation, apprenticeship style models where students receive paid employment while working for organizations, and requests for additional funding rounds to build evidence base and gather impact case studies. The role of generative AI is flagged as important for the future development of WIL, and industry and community partnerships are identified as crucial for navigating disruption. So there's absolute enthusiasm for expansion, but again, calls for addressing equity of access, paid versus unpaid placements, quality assurance mechanisms, and how to balance institutional autonomy with national mandates. Back to you, Nicole.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Faith. Well, I think leaning back to what Caroline said earlier, don't stop now. If you've got additional comments, please continue to post. I'm going to explain the voting, which you can do now, as well as I'm just mindful of time, and Caroline's going to do a summary and next step phase. So the voting instructions are in front of you on this slide. And like I said, take some time to reflect, go in. Those that you really resonate with and like, you can vote with a like. But to capture some real critical insights and takeaways, if you could use the heart icon, and then we can differentiate when we review the Padlet and do some analysis later on. If there's any questions to that, just post them in the chat. But I'm just going to, Faith, have you? Oh, no, sorry. Caroline, over to you.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, perfect. So that we'll call that a wrap just for the roundtable. Faith, could you just move the slide, please? So just where to from here? We know that we're at a critical point of disruption. There's been a lot of change, a rapidly changing policy environment. And so what we wanted to do is the government has made a huge investment around work integrated learning, and we're really grateful for that. And the goal then is, WIL Australia, we want to now collate your insights and feedback and pull that together into a coherent sector-wide report that we can share back to the government, really with the goal of inviting a continued national dialogue on where to from here, because I think we can all agree that the amount of movement and progress we've made over the last couple of years is absolutely fantastic. We've got now this rich set of learnings, and we want that really to inform the next phase. So from your insights from the Padlet, we will then be compiling that draft report, which we will be circulating to universities and to you for feedback, and before it then goes to the government. And again, see this as the start of an ongoing conversation that we will want to have you in and to co-design with us, because I think one of the strengths of WIL has always been the partnerships, and we want to make sure that as we think about the advocacy component, that we're taking that similar approach. Next slide, please. We also know that many of you are currently working on your WIL reports. So again, any insights that you want to share back to us via the Padlet would be well received. So we're going to keep the Padlet open probably for the remainder of the week. So if you don't like, thinking on the spot, you will have time to add additional thoughts and also to go in and rank. And again, the more quality insights we get from that Padlet, the richer our final report is going to be. the other bit that we just wanted, given that how rare is it that we get everybody together, we are also going to be working on what should the WIL Australia advocacy priorities be for 2026. So if you didn't have a chance in the Padlet to flag that, so some of you have talked about international student working hour caps. We've talked about access and inclusion, some of the barriers there. Again, let us know what's front of mind for you, that you want to take a more collectivist and sector-wide approach in terms of tackling the challenges. Also wanted to invite, if there's any key takeaways from the roundtable today, to again pop that into the Padlet. Next slide. So today would not have been possible without the efforts of a whole range of different people. I want to start by thanking Uncle Lloyd. Thank you for situating the conversation today. I really found very heartening your comments also around how do we create richer, more sustainable relationships with our First Nations partners, and where does this fit within the national conversation? Again, it's an emerging area that we need to pay attention to. I want to thank very much the Department of Education colleagues in the room. We really value the partnership and the co-design that you've taken right from the get-go. So we're really looking forward to working with you to work through these insights. To the lightning talk presenters, never easy to step in and have to capture 5 years of strategy in 8 minutes, but I think you all did brilliantly. So massive thank you to Ruth, to Paulina, to Rachel, and also to Alison. I also want to thank the dialogue facilitators. Thank you so much, Sarah, Rebecca, Oksana, and Kirsty. It was great to have your summaries. And we also want to thank the WIL Australia team, and also the members of the WIL Australia advocacy and engagement. And then I'm just going to end by saying sometimes when you step into boards, you get to work with colleagues, and sometimes people get really busy. But I just want to acknowledge the thought leadership of Faith, who really championed the need to have an NPILF debrief. So Ruth, thank you for championing this, bringing the thought leadership together and shaping today, and also Nick for much of the same. While the two of them were busy working away, I was off having the audacity to be on a holiday. So it's really fantastic that we could all be here today to start this hopefully next phase of conversation around WIL. So
I would like to just say a big thank you to you as well, Caroline. I think you're underestimating the work that you also put into it. So it's been a very collaborative effort, and I've really enjoyed working with everybody, and in particular yourself and Faith on this initiative. So thanks.
Excellent. Well, and lastly, I actually want to thank everybody for taking the time, because I know we all get pulled in a whole range of different directions, but thank you for coming and shaping this conversation with us. It's as Ruth said, I think, Ruth, you were spot on when you said there's a lot of competing conversations. This is, I think, one of the most impactful and empowering conversations. And if I think about data in my own institution, pretty much every student at Griffith University is having to work. And it's not always choosing to work, it's having to work, because that's the way that higher education is affordable. And WIL is potentially our most transformative lever, not only to support them for their career outcomes, but to also make higher education accessible. So thank you for helping shape the conversation, and we'll be back in touch once we have a draft report. And please let us know as you're writing your NPILF reports if there's any support WIL Australia can offer you. And Nick and Faith, any final comments just on your end?
It's been great. Thanks, everybody.
Yep, excellent. All right, safe travels, everyone. Thank you so much for your engagement today. Take care. Be well. Bye.